Welcome back to From Corporate to Cashflow. We are Andrea Kinnan and Liz Schwab, two pharmacists navigating the process of building time and financial freedom through real estate lending and investing while working our day jobs. Navigating the journey is difficult, but our podcast guests are experts in showing us how it's done. And today we have Jon Davis with us here today. Jon, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here and share.
Yes, stoked to hear more about your story, John. So we would love to start off to hear a little bit about your background, like where did you start off, and a little bit about your journey, i.e., like what are you working on now?
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it depends on how far back we want to go, but as of recently, we'll do that. So I was recently full time a police officer. I was on SWAT, field training officer, department mentor. During that time, my wife also worked for a company called Kitchen and Bath Crate. They do business, they do remodeling of basically kitchens and baths, which is crazy. But they like put a crate in front of your house and finish like when they say, and the bill doesn't change. So they were amazing. But we have 5 kids and we didn't want to both work. I was 5 yards of graveyard. I'd come home. I was tired. I was grumpy. I was home, but I wasn't really home because I never slept, and so it was horrible. So we said, "Hey, what can we do to change?" And so we started in real estate. So I've been in real estate for 6 years now. Started out as a lender, a mortgage loan originator, just helping people buy houses and refinance. And we got into short term rentals about 3 years ago. And yeah, started a business called B Flip Davis. The name kind of fun. My wife's business is called Be Fit Davis. She's in CrossFit, runs marathons. So naturally, my Instagram for a long time was Be Fat Davis, and so 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 when we were looking for a company name, we named it Be Flip Davis. We flipped a house, got into real estate, started short term rentals, and so we've done that for we have our own business for 3 years, and I met my business partner about the same time, a little after, who I've now partnered with. And so we still have B Flip Davis, but now it's under the umbrella of Elk Ridge Investments. And so my partners, Lame, Zach, and Utu, the four of us run a company called Elk Ridge Investment, short term rentals all across the country. And yeah, I quit the PD almost 2 years ago. My wife quit her job like a month after we launched our first short term rental. She was very quick to just like jump and go, and maybe a little too quick for us. I was like, "Whoa, we need to maybe think about this a second," but it was already too late. And so yeah,
Yeah.
now here I am. I think you said projects. Right now, I raise money for our basically our deals that we have, our real estate projects, our short term rentals that we have, and do in a very specific way, which I think we'll get into. But yeah, that's kind of real quick nutshell of what I've been doing over really the last 7 years.
Yeah, I love that. I love the SWAT background, right? It's like the perfect setup for real estate in case you need to go like hunt anyone down.
Yeah.
So it's perfect. And then I know you kind of alluded to this before that when you would get home, you like really weren't there like previously, right? Can you talk more to maybe like what inspired you to start looking for additional income, not outcome, with real estate, or just maybe pursuing STRs more opposed to like the SWAT life, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I just really knew that if I wanted to make more or do more, I would have to trade more hours for dollars. That was my only option. And I know that our pay in the Bay Area, I'm in California, our pay in the Bay Area is actually very good compared to the rest of the country when it comes to a police salary. So it was tough to leave, but at home I knew I have 5 kids. My wife and I wanted to do more, and I was just a zombie. Like I'd work graveyards, 11-hour shifts. Even my days off, I was just trying to catch up on sleep when I was gone. I was still able to coach, but I was, just wasn't the same person purely because of lack of sleep, which is crazy that, that would be the one thing to do it. The stress, the job, the bad guys, the craziness really never bugged me. It was purely the, lack of sleep. And then I'd come home. And so when we needed more, when we needed to save for vacation or the kids needed XYZ, I would have to go work more. So I was gone more and even less, sleep and energy. So we said, hey, you know what? If we have one property or we have 10 properties or we have, 20 properties, maybe the same amount of work going in, we can generate more income. How do we make money while we sleep? And so I know a lot of people have probably asked that question, but that's how we stepped into it was through short-term rentals.
Yeah, and how did you even like learn about short-term rentals, right? Because everyone knows about like being a landlord, the long-term rentals, but like why and how did you decide to focus on STRs?
Yeah, no, Instagram and TikTok.
Oh,
Really just watching reels. My feed was stacked with investment stuff, whether it was whatever it was, right? And I came across one guy that I really liked his idea of Airbnb arbitrage, where you
mhm.
rent a home and then re-rent it on Airbnb. And then I met, or I saw another post by a guy named Kyle Stanley, who I'm still partners with on a property, and found him, loved what he talked about, and told my wife, hey, we can do this. And she goes, well, if we're going to do it, let's do it right and let's do it for real, because you've started a whole bunch of other stuff in the past and never followed through with it. And so let's like make this happen. So we put our money where our mouth is and actually hired him as a mentor and tried to go from A to Z. Not having to, we didn't want to make all the mistakes that everybody else would, or that we would specifically along the way. So we said, let's do this. So we paid him, but it came from TikTok and Instagram. One of the gurus, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to believe him. And so, yeah,
Sounds like it worked out. That's
it
pretty
did.
cool.
It did.
So, short-term rentals versus regular long-term rentals, there's some differences as far as how they're treated, active versus passive. Can you cover some of this stuff for us, and why that might be important for people who currently have a corporate job?
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're kind of alluding there is which a lot of people call the STR loophole, and the big difference between long-term and short-term rentals, which you just allude to, is passive versus non-passive. So long-term rentals, anything that is average rents of 7.0001 or higher is a long-term rental, right? Anything 7.00 average rents, daily rents, or less is considered short-term rental. That's the IRS standard. It's very black and white. So for a house that qualifies as a long-term rental, the IRS sees that as a passive investment. So any losses from that investment is a passive loss. You cannot use it to offset active income, such as W-2 or bonuses, or sales income, or even if you own your own company, right? But if you own a short-term rental, which is 7.0 days or less average daily rent, and you materially participate in that property, you can qualify as a non-passive investor, which is huge, because then you can take the losses from buying furniture, or the losses if something goes wrong with the property, or depreciation, and take that and offset your active income, which is your W-2 income, or your 1099 job, or your sales, or your bonus. So if you go make a whole bunch of money as a W-2 and you go buy a long-term rental, put a tenant in there, that property doesn't help you other than long-term growth and being a real estate investor. But you do that same thing with the short-term rental, then you can take that depreciation of those losses, reduce your income on your W-2, and pay way less tax, or at least defer it.
Yeah, that has the potential to be absolutely huge. So I know neither of us, no one on this call is a CPA or any sort of attorney. So of course, everyone should take all of this and review it with your own CPA. But talk to us a little bit about material participation. What does that mean? How much do you have to do? Am I going to be messaging tenants? Is that the only way I can qualify? What are some of the ways that you can materially participate?
Yeah, great. So the IRS under Section 469, which I know, like you just said, not being a CPA from talking to lots of them, right? List out 7 different ways that you can meet the standard for material participation in a short-term rental. So the IRS gives you the code or the rules, you just have to follow it. One of those rules is 100 hours of material participation and above and beyond anyone else working on the property. That's the one that we use the most often, the easiest for our, and very black and white, and the easiest for our, our partners, or for someone to meet. Outside of that, you can hit 500 hours. You could do, I believe one of them is like majority of all of a significant role in one of the investment, but all of that is very subjective. So yeah, you can hit that, but you have to defend what does that mean. But all those terms are subjective. So the very black and white one is 100 hours above and beyond. And then material participation is something, definitely speak directly to a CPA about what qualifies. What we've learned, what we've talked to, are things that actively work on the guest experience and the property, not investment hours, right? So if you're researching a neighborhood or you're researching different things, that's considered investment hours. If you're traveling, that doesn't count, to the property. But if you're actively doing something physical on the property, right, painting a wall, that's material participation. Cool thing is, if you file married and joint and you're painting a wall there with your spouse and it takes you 1 hour, that's really 2 hours, because it's man hours on the property. But you can also do things virtually, like a big one we have is the guest guidebook. So if you've ever stayed in Airbnb or VRBO, or even a hotel, right, they have a binder that has where everything is, what's the rules, how to use the microwave, I guess, or what's the internet password, where's the closest hospital for when your kid jumps off the bunk bed, like XYZ. You can list all that stuff out. And the more in-depth and detailed, you can have a better experience for the guest, but you also can add hours. So You don't necessarily have to manage guests. Like a lot of people don't want to be saying how to use the hot tub or where's the extra roll of toilet paper. A lot of people don't want that stuff or want those questions. So have somebody else take care of that. And in the meantime, you can review guest reviews. You can review your VAs or guest communication. How's it doing? You can escalate if you need a handyman to fix anything that's gone wrong at the property. You can work on a lot of those things on your time, as long as you keep your time log and you're the one keeping track. You're liable for providing that if you need it. But there's a lot of different things you can do for material participation that don't necessarily deal with direct communication with that guest that just doesn't know where the on button is, you know?
Yeah, I think you and I have talked about this before, but I have my own short-term rental and I've managed it myself. And it's so funny because you create like this exact guidebook of how to the property, and it's okay, you hit this button, you get to this stairwell and you go left, and I have a picture, go left, and somehow there's still inevitably questions. So
Yeah.
mad props to the team that works on that in
Yeah,
the
I know. And I don't want to make those calls. My wife does all those, thankfully, for our close one, but I don't want any part of those anymore.
Yeah, no, I 100% feel that. So, when you mentioned losses, I think not everyone on here is a real estate investor in any capacity. So, help me understand. I'm getting into a property because I want to make money and I don't want to lose money. So, why would I want to have losses and how do I create those? And does that actually mean I'm paying money out of my pocket every month or every day for this property to offset my W-2 income? Help walk me through that a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad you framed it like that because I can definitely see how a new investor be like, "You're right. I don't want to. Why am I investing to lose money?" Right. Um, One beautiful thing that investors get to take advantage of is called depreciation. And so when you buy a property, there's a certain amount of the property that will lose value over time. And so, in order to take advantage of that depreciation, you do what's called a cost segregation study, a fancy term for basically a third party analysis of the allowable depreciation on the property, basically like an appraisal of the depreciation. So they'll take everything in the house, whether it be the asphalt out in the front or the light fixtures, and they'll put it into certain categories of 5, 7, and 15 years, or 27 and a half, or 39, right? But under the IRS tax code, you can take everything in the 5, 7, and 15 years and accelerate it as bonus depreciation into year one. And with the one big beautiful bill that just signed, that percentage is back to 100%. So you can take all of that depreciation, which is a loss, but I go like it's a loss, it's a paper loss, it's not a real loss. You're not really losing that money, but you can take all of that depreciation in year one and assign it as a loss to the property. And so, real world example, if you have a property that say you buy for 500,000, what they're going to do is take out the land value, which just say is 50 grand. You now have $450,000 of depreciable asset. Typically on a cost segregation, you're going to get about 30% of that. So whatever that quick math is, 90, 130,000, 135,000 of depreciation that you get to accelerate in year one. So if you're a W-2 employee and you make 150 grand a year, you just take that same scenario and you take all of that depreciation and use it in year one. The IRS looks at your income and says, "Hey, you made 150, but you had $135,000 in losses, right? Paper losses of depreciation on your property. Now your income looks like you only made 15,000. And so you're only paying tax on making 15,000, right? So essentially you can wipe out your entire income. And that's where you really want to strategize with your CPA on, hey, what's the goal? Do we actually use all of this in year one? Do we use some this year, some next year? Do I take it all this year and then use the money I saved to buy another property? Like that's where you really have some fun, strategizing with your CPA. So that'll come through clear. I know that I use
Yeah.
STRs and all that, but does that make sense?
No, it definitely did. And Andrew, I'm glad you asked that question because you're right. When you hear the term loss, you're like, well, what? No, I don't want to lose my money. Maybe you misunderstood, like, but you're right. And so it's all about like framing it and putting it towards that makes sense for like the non-real estate individuals, right?
Yeah.
So it's a loss, but at the end of the day, we're really just offsetting our taxable income. So it's not really a loss because then you're saving money on what you're paying for taxes,
Yeah. It turns
correct?
out to be a big win for you, actually.
Yeah, right. Okay. And can you just explain the significance of the 100% depreciation for this year?
Yeah, absolutely. So before that bill was signed, bonus depreciation was on a schedule to phase out. So 2025 was actually a 40% bonus depreciation. So in that same scenario of 135,000 of depreciation we could accelerate, we were only able to take 40% of that. So 13 times 4, whatever, for $39,000 roughly, $40,000 roughly of depreciation on the same property. So now that the one big beautiful bill is signed and that goes back to 100, you get to take all of that 135. So essentially a huge bump in how much depreciation you can take in year one, which is, significant. You're talking about 150% increase on tax savings this year because of that bill being signed.
Yeah, that's huge. And then what's supposed to happen next year again? Do we
Yeah.
not know, or does
So
it
now
continue?
now it's permanent. So it's
Permanent.
yeah, it
Okay,
doesn't phase
perfect.
out. Yeah, which is awesome.
I love that. Okay.
Really good for short-term rentals. Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously we talked about how it's like a loophole. I mean, it's not really a loophole because it's very clear that this is what the code and the instructions say,
Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
how to achieve this. So just to be clear, because I know some individuals are like, well, is this, are you breaking the rules? I'm like, well, the rules are this, and you're following the rules, right? So to kind of make sure everyone's on the same page. So if you have a regular W-2 job, right? You work a 9 to 5, you're like, hey, I'd really like to get into real estate. Don't really want to do a long-term rental because like we just discussed, it doesn't offset your income and it doesn't reduce your taxable income. However, if you have a regular W 2 and let's say, hey, I'm interested in having a short term rental, but I don't necessarily either have the time to manage it 250% all the time, or I just don't want to. So, this would be a good opportunity for someone to collaborate with you and Lame's company, correct?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, you led right into it for me, but yeah, that's exactly what we do. So we basically help that person, right? You guys are both pharmacists, right? So we help that person that has a full-time job. Me, when I was a police officer, don't have the time to do it. We partner with you on a deal and not in a syndication. We really a true partnership with us and you. And before we do that, we find out, one, are you a good fit for us? Are we a good fit for you? And what is your strategy and your goal? Because we don't just want to fit you into our box, right? We really want to mold the partnership to make sense for you and your goals. And then, yeah, we go buy a short-term rental, we operate it. We make sure that we give you the opportunity to be a material participant so that you can meet the standard. We also make sure on our side that we are not going to go above and beyond 100 hours so that you get the tax savings on that. And then we assign you the depreciation, and we can do that in several different ways. On top of that, you're a real estate investor, right? So you will get cash flow, right? That's one of the reasons we invest in real estate. There's also long-term equity growth, right? Building for the future and having equity. So you're a partner in the property or an owner in the property. So we set it up to do all three things: cash flow, equity, and tax savings. Really in a not done for you passive way, because it's not passive, right? We want you to be a non-passive investor. Your non-passive part is your 100 hours of material participation, which does not include guest management. Like, we don't want you messaging the guests, right? We take care of that, but that's the whole nother list of things that we talked about, guest guidebook and a few other things that we have you do to meet those hours.
That's awesome. I mean, man, that is such a good opportunity for people who are looking for something like this. And I know there's other companies out there that help with short-term rentals and all of that different stuff. But I think one of the things that's unique about your company is that a lot of your deals are actually creative finance deals. Would you mind providing just like a quick overview of what that means for a short-term rental investor and why using creative finance might be a huge help?
Yeah, one of the biggest reasons, if you've tried to refi or buy a house or look at a HELOC, is interest rates right now, right? I mean, interest rates are high. As a primary residence, your first time buyer, you can get, or even, if you're buying your primary house, you can get rates at like 6.5 maybe right now, maybe the low sixes. But for an investment property, you're looking at 7.5 to 8%. And so when the interest rate is higher, the mortgage payment is higher, and it's harder to cash flow. So what we do is we go out and work directly with sellers to buy the house directly from them and keep the bank out of the whole deal. So our interest rates on our last probably 10, 15 deals averages close to 4% in this market. I know we just bought one at 3.25%, right? Is our interest rate. People like, no one would do that. I'm like, well, they do it every day with us, right? And there's plenty of reasons why they would, and there's plenty of reasons why people never would. But we wait and we talk to the people that finally say yes, make them a good offer on their purchase price, make them a good deal that works for them. But what that allows us to do is cash flow, so that we can bring on a partner that we can run it as a short-term rental and make some money after we pay the mortgage, after we pay the utilities, after the investor gets their cut, after we pay the cleaners, right? Got to pay for all that stuff. If your mortgage is twice what it could be because of the interest rate, it makes it really hard to make it all pencil out.
Yeah. So if I am someone with a regular job and I'm not super familiar with creative finance or any of the things we've talked about so far, can I still partner with you and have you find the deal, or do I have to bring the property to you and then you help me manage it?
Yeah. No, what we do, and really for a couple reasons, but we find the deal and we negotiate the terms. The biggest reason for that is we're very picky about what properties we buy, right? We want to analyze, as we have over 200 doors. So we have experience picking which properties we think will do well. And we don't want to get into a property that's going to perform poorly. So you might have a house that you love or that your gut tells you is great, and all the numbers say, no, it'd be a terrible short-term rental, right? We don't want those. And so we find, negotiate, and analyze our own deals ahead of time, and then bring the investor or the partner, hey, here's a house that we are going to buy. Do you want to partake in this one? And so doing it that way allows us to make sure that we're going to make a few bucks on the back end, because the way it's set up, everybody else gets paid first, right? The investor gets paid no matter what. The mortgage is going to get paid. The cleaners have to, everybody gets paid before us. So if we just say yes to every deal, we're really setting ourselves up for some trouble, right? Because properties, they have to perform. So if we pick them and we say, people bring us ones, we're like, yes or no for these reasons. But most of the time we're finding and negotiating the deals.
Yeah, I mean that definitely makes sense because, like you said, the last thing you'd want is like, "Hey, I found this great house. Go ahead and manage it." And you're like, "Well, you're gonna make $0."
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
so to your point, yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your capital raising. So I know you mentioned before that you help capital raise. So can you go into a little bit more detail, like what types of deals typically you're raising capital for, and what types of opportunities are available, or what types of people you're looking for to deploy funds, basically?
Yeah. So when it comes to types of people, I think you guys have kind of framed it very well. It's the high income earner that doesn't have a lot of time to invest in real estate, but they want to invest in real estate. They also want to save on tax, right? And that seems to work really well for us, and we seem to work really well for them. Our investments, we they typically, the sweet spot is between 100 and $300,000 on the investment level. That covers our down payment. It typically covers any furnishings to get the house ready for a short-term rental. We're not really buying houses that need construction. Like, we don't want to waste our time redoing walls and kitchens and stuff like that. We just go straight into rent ready. But typically in that $100 to $300,000 investment range. But we have, I mean, shoot, we have a deal that's, we need 900,000 for, right? And so that takes a certain person that we need for that. And then those deals are properties in, typically in the states we're already in. So Texas, Florida, Georgia, Oklahoma, a lot in Utah. That's where our headquarters is. So we have them typically in the states we're already in, but they're properties that we're going to be comfortable with, like when I talk to the underwriting. So, and then
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to the actual deal, the actual house, we will take any house that our analysis says is going to make money. We don't have a specific, so we'll buy houses that are 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. We'll buy houses that are 7 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, right? It really depends on the property and the investment level. And then we're only bringing on one person per deal. So we're not looking for a person that wants to be in a syndication or in a REIT model. That's not ours. We're really creating a partnership with just one person on each deal.
Gotcha. And then are these longer term loans then? Because I'm assuming you're purchasing them in order to STR them. Is that correct?
Yeah. So most of our agreements now are 7 years on the short term rentals. And I think even as the investor, you kind of want that, because it allows for the property to appreciate. It also allows for us to force equity. And what that means is every time you pay the mortgage, a portion of it goes to the principal balance, correct? So after 7 years, we're paying down a significant amount of that principal balance, which is equity for the investor, right? So,
Yeah.
and it allows the property to make money and function the way it should.
Yeah. Okay, that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And so along the lines of both like capital raising and, your business with Lame, with managing like the STRs with other individuals as well, is there anything that comes to mind if I ask like what's something that you wish you would have known earlier on that like you know now?
Cool. Oh,
Because I know, yeah. Can you come up with one? Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot, right?
there's
So,
plenty. Yeah. I think when it comes to this, I just wish I truly wish I would have started sooner. My wife and I were dating. We weren't yet engaged, and she'll tell you that she would get so mad at me because before we were engaged, I'm like, I'm not talking to you about marriage. If we were going to get married, we'd be engaged, and we've been dating like 2 years. So she's like, is this guy really serious about me? Because I was like, no, but I knew I wanted to marry her, but I didn't tell her that. But so anyway, that's its own separate whatever drama, right? But she had an opportunity to buy a condo down in Southern California, right by the college we went to, Azusa Pacific. She's pre-approved. She had an offer accepted and everything. And I talked her out of it because I knew I was coming back to NorCal to propose. And I did not understand investing in real estate and equity and growth. And renters. I didn't understand any of that. So that's like my story to like, I wish I would have started sooner because that same condo complex now that she was getting in at like 210,000 is worth like $1 million across the street. And so,
I'm assuming
because
that
that was
she
back
like
in
throws that in your face anytime you guys fight. Like, remember that one time you told me not
every
to do
time
that?
we bring up real estate, she mentions it. Well, if John would let me bought the condo, because that was in 2009 or 10 when the
Ooh,
market was at
yeah.
its absolute lowest. She was, and I talked her out of it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, if we had just started sooner, if I had listened to her, yeah. So that's my biggest lesson that I learned was like, I wish I would have known. I wish I would have started earlier. I really wish I would have because the real estate market goes up and to the right. It has its pullbacks, but it goes up and to the right. And if we had bought that, 15 years ago, we have $1 million of equity sitting there that we don't have.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 That's a tough one to swallow for sure.
Yeah. She brings it up fairly often.
I bet, like any good wife would, right?
Yep. Yep.
Oh man, I think I probably both me and Liz also wish we would have gotten started sooner and like known a lot of the creative finance strategies that you were mentioning. Both Liz and I have learned a lot about creative finance since we really got into real estate, and man, that is so it's something I wish I would have known earlier. And, I have a home with an interest rate at 6.125 because I bought it traditionally. And
Yeah.
like, how much better that would have been had I known like about creative right then. And, we put another huge down payment on another property just because I didn't really know, all the creative strategies I know now. And it's not even STR, it is a LTR.
Yeah.
So,
But that's just because that's what has been one is not taught to us in school, right?
right.
None of it's taught to us. And then the second, what we do here is the older generation that was just like buy house, 20% down, whatever the bank gives you, and then grow it for however many years till you save up for another down payment. And that's what I thought. That's why I told my wife no to the condo. So
Right.
yeah. But now that we're open to these things and we have people online like Pace Morby and Jerry Norton and even Lame and the stuff, the other people you've listened to that you learn from, the people listening to you're teaching them about creative, right? It's more in our face now, I think, if you're looking for it, and really makes a huge difference when you're going to buy.
Yeah, no, oh my gosh, it definitely does. And the cash flow numbers are just so much different. And when you were talking about forcing, appreciation and getting more equity, I mean, if you take a look at amortization schedules for a 7, 8, 9% interest rate
Yeah.
and amortization schedules for a 3% interest rate, the amount of principal pay down is just drastically different per
Yeah.
payment. And oh my gosh, you're just making such a huge difference when you have those better interest rates.
Yep.
Oh man. So, thinking about what you guys are doing with Elk Ridge, talk to me about any habits or routines that you've developed to stay focused now that you're not as working as a police officer anymore and you've got this new investment sort of thing you're doing together.
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's see. I think the persistence, a lot of these deals don't come very easily. Capital raising doesn't come easily. There's a lot of no's involved in both, whether we're trying to create a deal or whether we're looking for people that want to invest. So it's just the persistence of going through what is working, the routine of really, I post a lot on LinkedIn, and staying true to it, not getting discouraged because of XYZ, really starting to pay off, and we're starting to see fruits from it. And so for my wife, it's the same theme, like kind of in our family. My wife's into CrossFit, and it's persistence. It's always showing up. It's doing it when you don't want to. And now that I'm working from home today, right? Working from home, it's very easy to get distracted with whatever else is going on, but actually sitting down, making the calls we're supposed to make, posting the stuff we're supposed to post, follow up on with what we need. Like I'm the only one that has to keep myself accountable and sticking with it. Like It's not always easy. It's tough. I mean, people see the stuff online. They're like, oh man, must be easy or must be nice. That's what we'd always say in college. Oh, must be nice, right? And you're like, yeah, you don't see anything that goes on behind. So the persistence, I think, is probably the biggest habit of that I've, trying to learn and be better at every day, but something that I recognize is needed and essential to making this all work.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Like consistent and persistency, right? Just doing it when you don't want to over and over and over again.
Yep.
I feel like that is the most common trait that I see in successful individuals. So definitely agree. So shifting once again back to the advice aspect and like lesson. So I'm gonna make this a little bit targeted just because Andrew and I are both pharmacists,
Mhm.
right? So let's say you're having a discussion with another pharmacist, same situation as Andrea and I, work a W-2, so you can't qualify as a real estate investor. They want to get involved in real estate, so they want to pair up with you and Lame to help manage an STR. What would be the best piece of advice that you would give them? Like they're new to this whole space,
Mhm.
right? So everything is new, but they know they want to do this. What piece of advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think it'd be ask a lot of questions. Find someone that has done it, like yourself. Talk to either one of you and ask a lot of questions about what did it look like, or set up a call with us to ask questions. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to invest with us, right? But what you're doing is gaining that knowledge and learning what you need to before you go place your money. Because you don't just want to go throw your money at anything, right? You want to make sure it's legit, make sure they're credible, make sure you understand what you're putting money into. But so it's learning, but then somehow getting past that analysis by paralysis and actually taking action on what you're learning. And so I think the biggest thing is you guys are experts in this, right? Talking and you're actually doing it. At the PD, I was the guy that did it, right? All my buddies are still there and they're like, man, I want to get out. I want to do this. And so it's like, hey, you're the guy that did it. So I think that's a separate thing. But the first is asking the questions. And even if you don't know what questions to ask, then it is getting on a call with like someone like myself or texting one of you guys or getting a call with you to say, hey, what is this really like? Is it really this simple? It sounds too good to be true. This sounds scammy. Like ask all those questions to help get those feelings out so that you can be ready to take the next step. Because I think that most people never get anything started. Most people will stay stuck because it's comfortable. And big decisions take risk and they take courage. Um, you know, Courage isn't doing something that is easy. Courage is having fear and then still taking the next step. I coach tackle football. We tell them that all the time. And so learn first and then find some way to take that first step.
Yeah, I think that's like when people talk about, like needing to have courage and it's like, it's not, I mean, it's not, you play it safe by staying where you are, right? And
Mhm.
you're kind of like, ouch, like I feel attacked. But it's like, it's so true. Like you just need to take like that first step and just kind of do it,
Mhm.
right? Because you can't just sit, because to your point, like you'll look back 10 years later and be like, I wish I would have done that, right? It's like you're going to get older every single day, no matter what. Like,
Yeah.
okay, the days are going to pass regardless. So it's nice to intentionally take that step forward because one day you will look back and be like, I wish that I would have done that. So to your point, I think the earlier that people can identify that and that it resonates with them, the better it's going to be, right? Because someday it will be too late. So it's a good mindset to have. And then another question. So I know a few friends that if we talk about STRs, just because this is the one way we can, offset our active income, they're like, well, I can just do that myself. I mean, it shouldn't be that hard. It sounds like a very simple concept.
Mhm.
Is it though? So I would like to hear your perspective about maybe things that people don't think about when they are 100% actively managing an STR by themselves that, people may not think of when they think that they can do it.
Yeah. Well, first off, people can do it, right? They
Oh,
definitely
they for sure
can,
can.
but
They
it is
can.
going to
Yeah.
be way more time than they anticipate. That's the biggest thing. Even if with one property, it's just way more time. There's way more things that you're like, guest pick out the smallest stuff and then you're the one that's going to the house to check it out. You're the one, or you're paying somebody to go there, which is just lowering your profit. Like there's just so many more small things. And then the game today, the STR game, it used to be any mom and pop could put anything on Airbnb and it was going to make money. But now the top 10% take 90% of the revenue, right? So our hometown of Lodi, and 5 years ago had like 32 STRs in it. Now it has like 130, right? And so it's not that less people are coming and booking, it's that there's more options for them, But if you're in the top 10%, you still make all the money. It's you have to know what to do to get into that top 10%. So design, what amenities are you going to do? How do you manage your guest management? How do you manage check-in and check-out and turnovers? How do you do your pricing? Because pricing is its own whole world. We outsource that very quickly because like, oh, this is
Hmm.
overwhelming. And then marketing, how do you do your photos? There's a lot that goes into it that you can learn. It's just going to be a lot more time than you think it's going to be. It always is. Everything about it,
Yeah.
even the trash, which is my least favorite thing. My wife will text me, hey, the properties are stacked up with trash in our hometown. And so then that's an hour and a half of my time to go get one of our trucks, go to 6 different stops, load up all the trash, go to the dump. And so even that, once a week,
Yeah.
once every other week, hey, hour and a half I have to dedicate to trash, right? So definitely doable, just more time than you probably think.
For sure. And then you actually set me up perfectly for the other question that I had is the STR market is getting more and more competitive, obviously. And I've heard Lame talk about this endlessly. But to you, how is Elk Ridge and, everyone that you are working with staying up to date on what is competitive so that you continue to perform at the highest level?
I think it's looking at the market, looking at which properties are doing well and asking why, and then be willing to invest in the properties that aren't doing well to update them to that standard. We have one here in our hometown. 3 bedroom, 2 baths are a dime a dozen here in my hometown. I'm using it as an example because I know it very well. We have 2 of them that we just got rid of. They were averaging like $3,800 a month in rents. That was their top line gross on those. We have a third one that has the garage decked out with a ping pong table, a pool table, a Pac-Man, a popcorn machine, has a life-size chessboard in the backyard, bocce ball court, and a hot tub. Um, and maybe even another stand-up arcade game. So it has all those amenities. The inside of the house is normal. That house does $6,400 a month average rents. It is the number one 3 bedroom, 2 bath in town by like $2,000 a month. It's insane. And so seeing that and knowing, hey, if we're going to get another 3-2, or we've even talked about, we have 5 bedroom, 3 baths, that adding some of that stuff to increase our price and make sure they're always booked. So seeing stuff like that, analyzing it, and they go, hey, we need to put that money into one of our other properties, opposed from a mom and pop that have their one that they've been doing it for 3 years. Hey, it was great in the beginning, but now Airbnb's slow. No, it's not Airbnb slow. Now there's 50 more properties that look exactly like yours. Now you guys are just racing to the bottom on price. And so I think it's being aware, open minded that you might need to change, and setting up your properties to do that so that you're in that top 10%.
Man, that's such a good call out because I think so many people think, okay, I can just throw this up on Airbnb, take a couple pictures on my phone, and like that'll be, raking in the moolah and offsetting
Yeah.
all my taxes. But obviously, you can make some money that way, but you're definitely not going to hit those top metrics and you're
Mhm.
not going to have the big revenue that you're anticipating and forecasting and probably hoping for when you're going down this path to begin with. Because, like, circling back from the beginning, we didn't go into this to lose money, we went
Correct.
into it to make money.
Correct.
Yeah, so different how Airbnb has evolved. And I think honestly, hopefully for a really positive guest experience too. I mean, that's all those amenities you listed out, they sound really fun, right?
Yeah.
And way cooler than just a random hotel experience. Like there's so many, the life-size chessboard and all this stuff. I mean, I've not ever seen anything like that at a hotel. It definitely creates a unique experience.
Yeah, and that's what the games come to, is experience. If there's a lot of people that complain about, the cleaning fees or XYZ, and Airbnb has made some changes to their pricing model to kind of hide some of that, even though it's still there. But if you're like, if I'm gonna have to do XYZ and I go to a house that I'm not sure because it's not standardized, house A could be completely different than house B because it's 2 different hosts, right? There's no standardization across it. They're just gonna go to a hotel. But when they see that they can have a full experience and they can picture their kids in that game room for 3 hours so they can get peace and quiet, or even longer, like they're gonna stay in your short-term rental over the next person.
Oh man, that's a really good piece of advice. And so, thinking about those experiences, you're creating those for investors, but we want to hear about maybe one that you have on your bucket list, an upcoming adventure, or something that you're hoping to accomplish in the next year.
I think I have. So you're talking about travel, like somewhere I might
Yeah.
want to go. I want to go back. I want to take my wife and go back to Japan. I went in 2006, but I didn't appreciate it. I didn't eat sushi at that time, and now I love it. And so I think if I could go back anywhere, like my favorite places on earth, we lived in San Diego for a year. I love that area. Lake Tahoe, which is 2-hour drive from my house, one of my favorite places in the world, and it's 2 hours from my house. But if I could go back anywhere, we've traveled a little bit, but I would love to go to Japan. My wife just doesn't want to go that far with our kids being young, but that's where, if I could go anywhere, it'd be back to Japan.
I mean this in the nicest way, but I was literally just thinking about eating sushi before you said that. So I mean, it's a sign. It's clearly
Oh,
a
heck
sign.
yeah.
Which also brings me to my next question. Do you have any international STRs?
No, not right now. And
Okay.
we just, we've brought it up once or twice, but we think that falls under our shiny object syndrome. There was a while we had Turo going and we had an oil change facility, and I still have a pool service company, and we have government contracts, which we still do a little bit on the side. We had all this stuff. And so we were like, let's go back to short-term rentals and focus on this, bring on partners for these, get really good at them. And so internationally is a different ball game, even though it's kind of similar, but still a different ball game. So for us, like that's just a shiny object that we're going to stay away from right now. Not to say we're not going to, because I would love to
That's
have a house
fair.
in like Costa Rica or something
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, sign me up for the Japan house.
Yeah.
So, okay. All
That
right.
too.
That's
That'd
fair.
be awesome.
Okay, so I know we talked about you capital raising and then the management of the STRs in your company. Are there any other opportunities or avenues that you would like to talk about in which people could collaborate with you or that you're looking for partners?
Yeah. So the real estate is our bread and butter. That's what we spend majority of all of our time on. We know that some people just want to make more money and they want more cash flow. And so we do have a debt fund that is not real estate backed, but it is the only other avenue of alternative investment that we, represent. It's with a manufacturing company that's US based, right out of Utah, no tariff problems, no import problems, nothing like that, all US based in the protein and supplement field, and already in line with RFK Junior. It's top notch. And so that pays out, starts at 18% return, but can go as high as 30% depending on a few factors. And it's a fixed return. So that's, if someone wants to talk about that, we can have a whole conversation. I think that's probably more, totally different road to go down on this episode or right now. But that's the only other avenue. No equity, absolutely no tax benefit. It's going to hurt your taxes, but you're going to make a lot of money.
Yeah, no, that's great, and it's good to understand the different implications, just as you spoke to. So, just to repeat, we recommend you speak to your financial advisor or CPA for your particular financial situation.
Yep.
But with that in mind, I know we've talked about a lot, and I have already said this, but just to reiterate, I think that working with the two of you would be a great opportunity, especially for professionals or any individuals with a W-2 in similar situations to Andrea and myself. So if a listener or viewer would like to get in contact with you or any of the companies, what is the best way to contact you?
Yeah, I think I'll send a link to you guys and they can book direct on my calendar, and set that up. I'll know that it came from you guys and then we can chat. It's just purely an introductory call. Really, we do not, I think I mentioned this one, want to fit people into our box. We want to make sure that it is something that they are happy about and excited about, because happy and excited investors, one, will invest more. But two, they're going to tell their friends about it and they'll be part of our family. So we also want to vet them and like, hey, do we really want to let this person into our family? Because we've had the mindset we would rather have two slices of an extra large party size pizza with all of our friends than have a personal size pizza by ourselves in the corner. And so in order of doing that, like we really want to talk to these people and talk to people that are interested in Elk Ridge and STRs, educate them, find out, is this a good fit for you? Should you do this on your own, not partner with us? We talk to a lot of people that we just want to guide in the right direction. A lot of that ends up being partnering with us, but yeah, that'd probably be the easiest way. I'll set up that call. It's no obligation call. It's purely, you can learn. I'll happily teach you for a half hour about any of these questions, anything you heard in depth if you'd like to know.
Oh, that's so helpful. And I mean, I especially with you guiding people, they may decide to go down the path of getting their own STR and then realize that maybe that's not a good fit for them. Sort of like my own
That's
personal
happened before. It's happened once or twice.
yeah. I'm like, I don't think I'm doing that again. But at least not on my own. So, man, this has been so helpful. We have learned so much. And I think this is just such a timely episode because with the reintroduction of the big, beautiful bill and the 100% bonus depreciation, the time for short term rentals, especially if you're looking to take advantage of the short term rental tax loophole, is right now. So, thanks so much for everything that you've shared with us today. It has been super, super valuable. And thanks so much, everyone, for listening to this week's episode of From Corporate to Cashflow. We will catch you next week. Hey, it's Andrea. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you liked it, I'd love it if you hit subscribe. Thanks so much.